was a Polly and her pals page from the early 1930s where Polly's dad, Pa, goes to an art museum, and in the art museum are all these hideously distorted figures that are done in like a cubist style. And then he comes out at the end and he sees a normal woman walking along the street, and he goes up and hugs her. And it's interesting that that particular artist, whose name was Cliff Starrett, was really paying attention to what was going on in art at that time with Picasso and Cubism and abstract expressionism and stuff. And so not only is he mimicking the styles that you would see in fine art or contemporary art at the time, but he was actually kind of poking fun at it at the same time. My father and his generation of cartoonists, they see comics as kind of a form of entertainment. It's there really to help sell newspapers. But since we established the Museum of Cartoon Art, since we start doing these art exhibits, the modern generation of cartoonists think of cartooning as an art form, and they take it much more seriously. My father is Mort Walker, who is the creator of over 9 comic strips, but 2 that are very famous and still running are Beetle Bailey and Hi and Lois. Since the 1980s, I've been working in the family business helping create those comic strips. Beetle Bailey is basically what I would call a slapsticks. You know, Beetle Bailey can get broken up into little pieces on the ground, and the next day he's all back together again. You know, it's almost surreal or something. Hi and Lois is a family strip. I call it a functional family in a dysfunctional world. You know, they're not The Simpsons. You get the feeling that it's a loving family. These people like each other, they respect each other, and it's reality-based. People think of these characters as real people. So if the little baby, her name is Trixie, if we don't have her buckled in her baby seat exactly the right way in the car, we get letters from readers saying, you know, you're endangering her life. I think that people today concentrate so much on contemporary culture and what's going on right now that they don't really have a sense of history of what came before. So although a lot of people today might be familiar with a comic strip like Dilbert or something, they may not have ever heard of Little Nemo in Slumberland, which was a great comic strip that ran between 1905 and 1911. And I think it's important to understand the history and the legacy of an art form like comics. It's such an important part of American life. And by studying comic strips from the past, you get a sense of what was relevant and funny to people at that time, like whether it's the 1920s or the 1930s, what made them laugh and what people looked like and what they behaved like and what they talked like. There are some people that don't think that comics belong hanging on walls in museums. That basically they're created to be printed in a newspaper, in a comic book, in a graphic novel or whatever, and that's the way you should read them. They're not really designed to be hanging in museums. But on the other hand, I think they are unique creative works of art. You can't really compare it to fine art or other forms of art, because it's a unique combination of words and pictures together. And so I do think that they work in a museum setting. And I like how this exhibit was done. It's very respectful. I think you need to look at it in the same way you would look at an exhibit of Impressionism or something like that, if it's a type of art.